Thank you for joining the DIMPRP podcast, the podcast that brings together public relations professionals and influencers. I am your host, Vanessa Abron, and I'm glad you joined us today. Hi, everyone. So today I have a bit of a non-traditional guest in the sense that this person is neither a PR professional or influencer in the sense that we normally think about this. However, I think this particular guest has a lot of great things to offer for this particular platform. Her name is Keeana Barber. Keeana Barber is the current CEO of WDB Marketing, a design and printing agency. She began her career in promotions and graphic design, but soon transitioned WDB to become a full-service marketing agency and printing manufacturer. To date, her company services 800 to 1,000 businesses per year, focusing on supporting small businesses with either their brand identity, marketing strategies, and creation of marketing collateral. In an effort to expand their product offering and turnaround time, WDB became a full-service, in-house print production company in 2016, truly becoming a one-stop shop for design, marketing, and printing. The strategic business strategy for WDB proved to be very successful as the company continued to expand and grow their operations and client pool. Past and current clients include the Chicago Urban League, the University of Chicago, the Common Ground Foundation, the South Shore Chamber of Commerce, and Sip and Savor. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ms. Keeana Barber.
So without further ado, thank you so much for joining me for the DIMPRP podcast. Introduce yourselves to the folks.
Yes, I am. Thank you for having me on the podcast today. I'm excited. Like you said, we could talk all day. I am Keeana Barber. I'm the CEO of WDB Marketing. We are a brand management and full service printing company based in South Holland. I've been in business for going on 15 years now, and just excited and blessed every day to be able to support over 1,000 entrepreneurs every year and help other people further their dreams.
How did you get started in this type of service?
It's always a good question. People don't know, so I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurship was in my family, although I didn't have anybody that had like structured business, but people are always very entrepreneurial in spirit. When I graduated from Northwestern in 2004, I had this big idea to go to California, start a clothing store with my brothers. This is back in 2004 again, so hip hop, urban fashion, and everything changed. My brother was up here to actually help us move, and while he was here, tragically, he got killed. So he died in November of 2004. But before he left a very big imprint, not only on me, but just on even the idea of what to do in business. So he had this new promotional company called What's the Business. He had just incorporated while I was still in college, and he had the idea of doing events and promotions on the West Coast, because he was West Coast based. And we had a meeting the day before he died. And I like to know that God intervened and helped put his vision that he had in me. So when he passed away, as heartbroken as I was, his legacy was almost more important. So I just said almost immediately, he was 27 when he passed away. I said, what can I do to continue his legacy? And What's the Business was just prevalent. So a lot of people don't know, I just introduced myself. The name of my company is WDB Marketing, but it actually stands for What's the Business. So most people don't know that's actually how I got started as an event promoter. I jumped off in 2005, hosted my first event in his honor. And after about 2 years of a hard knock life as a promoter, I learned that I had more of a skill set that I had developed doing graphic design, doing street team promotion for other people than doing my own events. So 2 years into it, I birthed WDB Marketing just to get a more corporate approach. And again, start to work with not on my own events as much, but helping other people birth their business. And I haven't looked back since.
So I'm glad you said that, because I don't know if you know this, but back in the day, I used to work at Shrewd Marketing and Promotion. So I definitely got some street team credits in my back pocket.
Yeah, so Shrewd, that's around the time that I was promoting, but you all were like the big guys. So you always had the big accounts, and I think you had like a lot of the radio stations. So Shrewd was everywhere. So I was more of like the independent promoter, but it gave me a lot of insight to actually marketing and promotions, which we both now know is a whole world and a very big world. But at the time, I just jumped in as a small fish.
So what are you doing now?
Also, now we do everything. So I kind of gave a very fast conversation about what we do. We do full graphic design, brand identity. I've developed this company from just myself and my mom that started, and now we have 9 people that work for us. We do everything from, again, design, website development. We still do some promotions, but we also do a lot of print. And I'm very proud that we were able to develop over the years our own printing manufacturing house. So we print t-shirts in-house. We print signage and the nice retractables and the things that you see at events. We do all of that stuff in-house. So what I learned just being an entrepreneur is, one, people always need stuff and they need it at the last minute. So I came in being a designer, outsourcing all of my print. But then after a while, I said, you know what, people need this stuff like tomorrow. And I really can't control that process working with other people because they don't always care. Their burdens aren't our burdens, but I wanted to make my clients happy and help them with the process. So we began to acquire equipment. So over the years, we developed from just being a design company, outsourcing all of our print to actually doing mostly everything internal, where we now are in South Holland, as I mentioned. We have our manufacturing plant here so people can come here, see where the magic happens. And we deal with almost 1,000 entrepreneurs every year.
So speaking of who you deal with, dealing with entrepreneurs and things like that, you know, one of the things that kind of sparked this podcast was the idea of working with influencers. And when I say influencers, I'm talking about like the new, like the bloggers and the social media people, you know, and all those people that are starting to do, you know, like those who have like a social very heavy digital presence, whether it be a website or their social media page, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, things like that. Do you get to work with a lot of people like that, or those who are just really trying to get into that space?
So we've started to a little bit, like you said, you went back around from the days of Shrew when things were a little different. So social media has just exploded. And the way that we do marketing now is not the way that we did it even 10 years ago, even 5 years ago. So we do have young influencers that come in that have 10, 20,000 followers on Instagram that come to us and say, you know, how can I monetize this? You know, or how can they expand, right? Because sometimes they're able to deal with a lot of the younger brands, but they say, you know what, how can I get a corporate account? Or how can I get some of these larger accounts? And we're honestly just now starting to capture some of that and really be able to capitalize and matchmake almost with our clients who may have a growing franchise or a growing apparel brand and say, hey, you know what, we got some young influencers who wants to tap into that base. So we're really just now starting to get into that. Our core base is entrepreneurs, and a lot of our entrepreneurs are influencers. So we deal with Love Corkscrew, Krishan Lampley, and we deal with Trez Pugh from Sip and Savor. So those are the influencers that we deal with on an everyday basis. And I kind of leverage them for other entrepreneurs. So they need an event, they need a great speaker, you know, they need someone to make their, you know, the expo pop. I kind of leverage who was in our database just to matchmake because it's a win-win. You know, entrepreneurs on all levels still want exposure, still want to be talking in front of a crowd, and people who are hosting events and doing great things, they want successful people to be able to push.
And I'm glad that you have that street team background. And because like you said, back in that day, like I remember when we used the word influencer, it meant something completely different. It was like the tastemakers. It was like just the people who were kind of like the cool kids, you know, connected to things, got invited to, you know, certain things because of who they were and who they were affiliated with. And there wasn't necessarily a metric to determine it. It was just kind of like a thing people, it was like people knew you were this tastemaker. Either you were or you weren't.
Yeah, it's like the proof was in the pudding. So either you came to the event and the event was packed and you knew it was because a couple of people brought those people out, or like you said, it didn't. Well, now you got a link that's going to show how many people from that post actually went to your website, how many people were they able to convert. So things have definitely changed.
And so, and actually, and I was talking to someone else about this in another interview about like, even from a PR perspective, like even before it was like the influencer thing, like we were, you know, from a PR perspective, like we traditionally worked with, you know, like producers for radio and television, and then like newspaper writers, magazine writers, things like that. But then on came the bloggers, you know. So it's like,
Yes.
okay, how do we interact with these bloggers? Then you had the YouTubers, you know,
Mhm.
people creating these videos. It's like, okay, how do we interact with them? Then you got Twitter, you know, people that's just like popular on Twitter because, you know, they have a lot of profound things to say and they know how to carry a conversation. Then Instagram came, and then you had the Instagram famous people because they took the great pictures, you know,
Yes.
and had the cool videos. And so they was able to get really popular on Instagram. So like the term influencer became like this very like encompassing you know, word to include all of these people that are very popular on a digital level. But I also have clients, you know, like you said, that are entrepreneurs who do different things. They may be doing something in fashion, or they may be doing something in the food space, or they may be doing something in music. I'm like, you guys are influencers too, you
Absolutely.
know, and you guys need to consider yourselves as influencers. Like, you may not have like the so-called following on your social media page, you know, per se, but if we were to go back to the original word of influencer, you will fit into that category.
They would definitely be. And that's the only thing, I'll be honest, it's a little frustrating because it's like it's ever evolving, like you just said. So I watch a lot of Gary Vee, and Gary Vee has been talking about TikTok for years. You know,
Mm-hmm.
so it's like you kind of continuously have to play catch up. And whoever identifies the latest trend and is able to capitalize, like you say, Instagram wasn't always about necessarily great content. It was about, well, pictures and imagery is content, but you didn't necessarily have to have a lot of substance behind it. If you could figure out the science of it, figure out what really drew those eyes and get those followers, you could become this influencer without necessarily having a back end or credibility in that industry. So I don't know if I'm always a fan of it. You definitely have to stay tapped into it because that's just the rules of the game now. But I like more of the tried and true. I like more of a Vanessa Abron who's been doing this for years and really understands PR versus somebody who just comes along and understands, oh, if I have these certain type of graphics, or if I'm, you know, and like I said, part of it is a science to it, but you know what I mean? Just not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily having the foundation. So you might be an influencer in the industry that you really don't understand, but you were able to capitalize. You know, perfect example, one of my friends the other day mentioned a young lady who was able to, and I won't mention her, but she was able to grow her social media following to like 30,000 followers in a month. And I said, well, what did she do? She said, well, she posted a lot of really cool food photography. And I said, was she a food photographer? She said, no. I said, did she cook the food? She said, no. I said, well, what did she do? She just found really good photos, and she was able to kind of figure out this science and grew. So now it's grown to the point she's got her own podcast. Now people submit these photos to her, but she literally built it. I don't know if it was off a gut or instinct or what, but she wasn't in the food industry. She didn't actually make food, but she was able to create 30,000 followers in a month's time just because of the visual. So that's what I mean. I don't know if I'm griping, but you know what I mean?
No, that's just, it's like, that's very, I don't think people can do that anymore, because I've definitely seen pages of beautiful pictures and I look at their following and it's not there.
It's
So it's
not that,
like,
it's a hit or miss. Everybody can't
mhm.
do it. But it really intrigued me. And like I said, it got to the point now she's just launched a podcast and she's doing all these other things, and she's just trying to switch over her followers to follow her in other ways because she really didn't have a food background. She was just able to capture it. But you know, social media is visual.
That's a great case study though, like to really dissect. That's
I'll send
really,
you her
really
link
interesting.
offline. I won't mention it because I'm not trying to knock her, but that
Yeah.
it perplexed me too. But I'll send you her actual Instagram link.
So I'm curious, like when these people come through your doors and they're asking for assets and things like that, and you see what they're trying to do, like you said, they want to have this look. How do you consult them or mentor them? Because like you said, some of them are kind of young. Like, what's some of the cool directions that you had to give, or that you find yourself repeating over and over and over again?
It's a little bit of both. You know,
Mm-hmm.
everybody's different, so you have to understand who the client is. Do they actually understand who their audience is? Which we know a lot of people don't. A lot of people just want to start business. They want to be, on their own. They want to be independent, but they don't understand the true reason. But I'm in tried and true principles. So it's certain things that you have to do. So no matter what you're offering, you got to have good quality. You have to
Mm-hmm.
make sure that the foundation is strong. So I find myself mentoring a lot of people who come in, especially some of the younger entrepreneurs, just on business in general. Like perfect example, I just got off a call about 2 hours ago. Someone wanted to get a logo rebranded. So they've been in the photography video business for about 3 years, wanted some rebranding. And they talked about what they're doing 2 slightly separate brands, and they wanted to have 2 LLCs set up. So the opposed to talking about the brand, and I said, well, why are you setting up 2 LLCs? So I ended up telling them about DBAs and all this other stuff. So I find myself just talking to people about business principles in general. People who know me know that I am a fan of legacy. So how do we educate the next generation? Like I said, I started my business, I was 22, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, didn't have a lot of knowledge or information, so I was going off of intuition, off of gut. So now I try to make sure that my 15 years of experience can rub off for somebody who's coming in, even if they've been in business 10 years. The things that I've learned from hosting events and making good and bad partnerships, all of those things, I always still try to share with people. So I don't know if I answered the question. So from a creative standpoint, I try to understand who their audience is. But again, just being honest, our customers range from people who've been in business 20, 30 years, who are very successful, to people who've been in business who are dated, to young, brand new people. Everybody doesn't know who their audience is. You know, I'm sure you do it in PR. Who do you target? Well, we target everybody. Everybody's our client. You know, anybody can buy it.
And that's right. And that's a red flag.
Yeah, so because that's the core of your branding. So when you talk about the look and the feel and the tone and everything about your brand, you have to understand who you're appealing to. Are you appealing to a 30-something-year-old Black woman? You know, that's a professional. Or are you appealing to a 20-something? Because that dictates where you actually go with your brand. Our brand colors are blue, it's tried, it's trusted. We have a more corporate look. Why? Because I understand who our core and our foundational audience is. So I find myself mentoring people and really almost giving them homework sometimes to flush out. You know, I tell people all the time, well, who's your competition? What are they doing? It's not that you want to mimic them, but you actually need to understand who's in this industry. And if they're successful, then I'm sure some things that you can learn from them. So I find myself doing a lot of that. From a graphic perspective, I still do a lot of the creative direction. I don't do most of the design. We have various designers, various web developers, but I do have a very good intuition. As you mentioned earlier, so I have a really good intuition of, okay, Vanessa maybe have this type of kind of colorful, and you might be more of the burgundies and the orange type feel. I have a really good intuition for that. That's why I still like to meet a lot of our clients up front, especially if they're doing bigger branding campaigns. So I can kind of point them in the right direction creatively. But like I said, it's a lot of stuff outside of the creative that needs to be worked on to have a successful business. So I find myself, that's honestly what I'm more passionate about. People don't know is those other things that's going to make or break the company. You know, WDB's brand looked great, but I made sure that our quality was there. I made sure that our brand promise was there. And that's how we grew. It wasn't just because we had pretty graphics.
Oh my gosh. You just said a whole lot. And I have like so many, I have so many follow-ups to like a lot of things I want to say. So I'm going to say this real quick. And so you make sure I stay on track. Target audience, intuition, and not just pretty pictures. Okay. So we're going to start with target audience. We're going to target audience, intuition, and not just pretty pictures. We got to go through all of that.
I know we do. It's important. It's business.
Because it's so funny because I actually, when I do consultations as well from a PR standpoint, that's always my first question. Who's your target audience? And if they say, like you said, everybody is like, we gotta rewind. We can't start until you have a defined target audience. Because even if you look at like a McDonald's or Coca-Cola, even though those are brands that seemingly appeal to everyone, they didn't appeal to everyone all at one time.
Absolutely.
It started with a certain, and even now, it started with a certain demographic. And once they captured that demographic, they moved on to something else. And it's like, okay, let's expand. And they expanded little by little. Like if for a lot of young people may not remember this, but McDonald's like a long time ago had a very kiddie brand where you had the Ronald McDonald and a Hamburglar, and it was like bright red and it looked very cartoony. To now it's gray and very sleek looking. It's a very different image, you know, and it evolves. And I think what happens is brands get scared, like brands, influencers, people, business owners, they get scared of developing a target audience because they think that they're eliminating somebody.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it's like, it's not that you're eliminating someone, but you have to understand, like, if you cast your net so wide, you're going to be scrambling all over the place and you're not going to get anything done. And I'm listening to an audiobook right now. It's called The 4-Hour Work Week, right? And in the 4-Hour Work Week, one of the things that he said was, you have to have your audience down packed, or you are just creating like a path of destruction for yourself if you don't do that. So the fact that so many small business owners, entrepreneurs, influencers do not realize the importance of not only defining their audience, but even understanding their audience and how important that is, that if I could just do something on that, like.
And it is scary. You hit it right on the head. People have that fear of missing out. And I'll say, because again, when I started, again, I go a lot, we're going to talk about intuition. So it was a lot on intuition, but I'm not going to say I had my audience completely figured out and I knew exactly what my purpose was going to be. I kind of stumbled upon it. But what I do encourage people to do, because it's, again, pay attention to your competition, because they've already put in the work to figure it out. So figure out, who are they appealing to? Who walks through their doors? Who does their advertising look like it's appealing to? And the second thing is, as you do begin to open up and develop customers, start to pay attention to what those trends are. So our client has evolved over the years. Well, like I said, I started in a promotion background. We can talk about that offline. I'm sure we know some of the same people. So those are the first people I tapped into, the venues and the promoters and things like that. Those are my first clients. That's not who my audience is now. So it's evolved over time, but it took me to say, well, where are the trends going? I see entrepreneurship, Black entrepreneurship specifically, is on the rise. What do they need? Who are they? Are they the entrepreneurs who coming out with a shoestring budget? Do they have a little bit of money? Are these professionals who are at 40 years old and saying, hey, you know what? I got a little bit of money saved up. I want to invest in my business. So I took the time to start to figure out what the common factors were, and I evolved my brand. So not only did I evolve my brand, one of the things that people love about what we do is I evolve everything, our activity surrounding our brand. So not just who we are when you come through the door, but what events that we support, what events do we host, what things do we sponsor. Everything surrounds who my target audience is. So I'm saying that to be a little encouraging. I know sometimes it can be hard. I remember when I graduated from Northwestern, I was taking an entrepreneurship class called the Women's Self-Employment Project. And that question was on my business plan, who's your audience? And it was hard for me to figure it out when I first started. But you have to take the time, like I said, other people who have already put in the work, follow what they're doing. And as you start to build clients, figure out, well, what are the common factors? Because they have more in common probably than you realize. And like you said, McDonald's is the perfect, they were targeting kids because they knew the kids would be pulling on their parents' coattails saying, hey, I want you to take me to McDonald's. They weren't targeting everybody. If you try to advertise to everybody, you're going to have a very, very big budget. They were advertising Saturday morning commercials, family shows. That's where they spent their advertising dollars. So if they felt like everybody, which like you said, I use McDonald's for a lot of examples as well, because they seem like they're the catch-all. Everybody does go to McDonald's at some point, but guaranteed if you get back down to their marketing, they probably have a very specific target, maybe a woman that's, 30 years of age or whoever that is, that they actually focus their advertising and their messaging on. And that messaging just actually happens to grab other people who are still coming.
Yeah. And I think another thing, a great place to start for people who don't understand their target audience is to look within yourself. Because oftentimes your target audience is who you are. And that's the easiest place. Like, you know who you are, you know what your likes are, you know where you're going, that. And so, because if you're trying to target an audience that you know nothing about, then that's going to be very difficult. Like, it'll be easy for me and you to target an audience of Black women, who are goal oriented and, trying to, like, that would be easy for us because that's what we're doing. If we were trying to target, okay, I want to, target Asian American woman who owns clothing boutique stores in Boston, like, why would we do that? We know nothing about that. So the best place to start, if you don't know where to start, would be look at who you are and look at what you know and understand and start there. And like you said, that's where you start. It doesn't mean that's where you end. And you can slowly, and you can slowly expand between there. And just because this is your target audience today doesn't mean a year from now it's not going to be something completely different. as you said, my target audience, I've only been in business independently for 5 years. And I would say within those 5 years, my target audience has definitely changed.
Absolutely. Yeah. Ours is constantly evolving, but you have to be paying attention to it. You have to pay attention to who's coming through the door, who's visiting your site, who are the people who are screaming the loudest that they are a fan of who you are. But I love that look inside, because honestly, that's how we built as well. As I was growing, I kept telling people, and it was really the truth, hey, we're a growing entrepreneur. Like, I'm a growing entrepreneur. I'm a growing business, so I understand exactly what you need. I understand the budget constraints. We have been able to develop and expand, but we're still a small business. We still have challenges. We haven't, made it out, made it out like that, like people think. So I'm always on the other side to say, is our pricing right? Could I afford this if I was on the other side of the table? And that is very important. So I think you hit it on the head with, like you said, look inside you. Some people try to reach for a completely different audience, but if you don't, then that's what collaborative partners, working with people who actually do understand your audience, or who are actually that audience, plays a part too.
Right. And so then let's segue into intuition now. Oh my gosh. So before we dive deep into this, I'm gonna tell you a secret. So I remember when I first started my business and I was like trying to figure it out. And I had this reading done. It was a free energy reading. And I just happened to be at at this event, and they had these energy readers. And it's like, oh yeah, it's free. Just go and sit down and get your energy read. And I was like, okay, whatever. And the story grows so much from there. But anyway, when I sat down with the young lady, the first thing she said to me was, you're a very intuitive person. And if you learn to trust your intuition, you'll be way more successful. And she said, the problem with you, and like I said, I have never met this girl in my life, haven't seen her again. If I were to walk across her today, I wouldn't remember her. But she said, the only reason why you don't trust your intuition is because it doesn't make sense at first. And she says, not to say that it doesn't make sense, it just doesn't make sense at that moment. So the example that she gave was, like your intuition is like your GPS. And so she said, like, say you put in your phone directions to a location where you know where the location is, but you don't know how to get there from where you are at the moment. So you put the address in, and then as you get closer to the location, it says for you to turn left. And you're like, wait a minute, I know that this venue is like, if I just keep going straight, I'm gonna hit it. Like, why is it telling me to turn left? And it's like, no, turn left. You're like, no, that doesn't make sense. I'm gonna keep straight. Then you keep straight, and you see like, oh, there was an accident and the streets are cut off, like, or something happened. It's like, oh, that's why the GPS told me to turn left, is because it saw ahead of me, and therefore it was trying to give me another direction so I can avoid this situation. And that's what our intuition does. Like, sometimes it can see ahead of us, and I'm speaking very esoterically, I know, but it can see ahead of us. And it's like, sometimes you have to trust it. And so since then, I've trusted my intuition every time. Like no matter what, my friends say, no matter what my family members say, like, I just do it. Like the book, like I just told you, I started promoting my book because intuition said, now is the time to promote your book. And I said, okay. Even how this podcast came together years ago, I had an intuition, and it said to start a blogger event. And I didn't know what that was going to look like. This was like 2016. Didn't know what that was going to look like. But I started like putting it down on paper and just started working it out. Then I kind of finally honed in on what it was going to be and what the conversation is going to be like. So I knew what I wanted it to be, but couldn't actually implement it. But I had it on paper. 2017, it was like I manifested it. So then after I did it so many times in Chicago, something told me to take it to LA. So you should do this event in LA. And I was like, what? Like, why would I go? Like, I'm not ready for LA. Like, that's too, like, no, I'm not ready. And it kept coming to me like, no, you need to go to LA. I was like, okay, I made myself a promise. I have no idea what this means, but let's go for it. Sure enough, I just did an event in LA in March, like right before the event closed down. Thank you. And actually, I did the first event this time last year in LA. And it was like such a great success. And I'm kind of mad because I plan to do more. But anyway, I've developed so many great contacts from that. And then eventually I started doing the podcast because I was like, I still want to connect with more people across the country, even if I can't, physically commute to them. So yes, intuition. I feel like that's one of my number one business strategies is, yes, you have like the guidelines, like you read the books by, by Ford and, the guy from GE and, you read the Fast Company articles, but then you have to take those as guidelines and incorporate your intuition to kind of make those guidelines your own.
Absolutely. You have to. And like you said, I think that we both are kind of led by that same force. Even when I talked about with my brother when he passed away, it was only a couple of days when he passed away, and it was, I pray, it's God speaking, of course, as well. And it's just like, it just told me, and I still remember to this day, I remember where I was at, and I said, it's what's the business? Like, that's what I'm supposed to do. And I could feel everything in me that that's where my energy was supposed to go. And I completely shifted. And like you said, I've used that throughout my career. Just again, what does my gut tell me to do? It's time. It's funny. I had a very similar intuition moment when I thought about going national, and COVID has interrupted it a bit, but something told me at the end of the year, I said, you know what? You've done a lot in Chicago. Your footprint is here. It's time to expand. Because I haven't done that. So I can understand the fear, we'll call it, fear that you had of saying, I'm going to go to LA, I'm going to go to this new place, and I have to try to pack a room full of people in a whole nother state. It can feel a little intimidating, but God doesn't put it in you, if He's not going to help you bring it to light. And that was my latest thing. I said, you know what? It's really time for me to expand our footprint nationally. So I'm still working on it a bit, but I 100% follow my intuition. Like you said, even if it doesn't make sense, I'm very big on that. I tell people, whatever advice you hear, even if you hear us talking now, you still have to apply it to you. What feels right, that makes sense, what resonates. Don't just apply everything, because everybody got different experiences, and everybody gonna have a different, they have a different perspective. So some people may tell you, hey, do it fast and fail along the way. Some people tell you, no, plan for it. You have to feel what's right for you. You have to understand what it is that your path is and what feels right in you to say, is now the time to go ahead and launch this event? Or do I need to follow something? Do I need to go to a couple of other events? Do I feel ready for it? Not am I pushing myself, but do I feel, is my instinct telling me? That's how I was when I started to do the Legacy Awards. It was an intuition. It said, you know what? This is the year. It's been 10 years. This is the year that we celebrate and we bring our network together. And like you said, it's this spirit that comes in you and the ideas just start to flow. And you get that almost like an electricity that comes through your body. And that's how you know that you're actually on the right path, because you can feel it with everything in you as you're talking and as you're writing out those ideas. That's what moves you. So if you don't feel that, then maybe you might be trying to force it.
And yes, exactly. And then you get little things along the way to remind you that like you're on the right track. Like I remember when I started planning the event and I was like, Lord, what am I doing? And just even like putting it together and like reaching out to people. And I wouldn't say it was easy, but it was easy in the sense that, like, okay, I need to find a venue. Okay, got the venue. I need to find speakers. Like I'm reaching out to people. Some people aren't responding, but other people are responding. And now I'm starting conversations with people that I want to start conversations with, but didn't have a reason to start a conversation with. So now I have a reason to reach out to you instead of just being like, hey, how you doing? And so then even got to the point where even if the event wasn't a success, just putting it together within itself had so much reward with it. And it was just like I said, little things. And then it was moments where it was like, you know what, why am I doing this? I should just quit. And then right when I would have that moment, something would come and be like, thank you so much for doing this. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm supposed to be doing it. I'm supposed to be doing this, because I like every single time, like I want to quit. And right when I want to quit, somebody will come like an angel and say something. And like, I'm like, you said that right on time.
Yeah, you hit it on the head. It's like things will line up, those opportunities will line up and connect, and it could be things that you never even imagined. Or like you said, it may be a bigger picture. Some stuff may not even be, it might not have been for that event, but Vanessa needed that connection in LA for what she's going to do in 2021. And you didn't know it, but you needed that seed to be planted now so they knew who you were, so you could even do it for the bigger opportunity. So like you said, it's things like that. You'll get those little confirmations along the way that'll really show you that if you're on the right path or not.
Oh my gosh. And I just wish so many business owners and influencers would take that into consideration, because like I see sometimes when they are trying to develop their followers and things like that, it's like I see that they're trying to maintain this level of metrics more so than anything, and they forget that it's about, like, people went into what they did because they had a passion for what they did, not
Absolutely.
because, or at least that's what they should do. And it's like, and I think the people that have an absolute passion for what they're doing and actually really tuned into what they're doing and building community versus just building followers, that makes you stand out a little bit longer. Because if you're just following the rules, like, oh, influencers make money by being popular and getting brands to do this, I want to do it too, and you're just following the guidelines but not really invested in it and not really following your intuition, because you're probably not going to be successful in that, because this is probably not what you're supposed to be doing, you
Yes, you're
know.
forcing it. You're forcing something. And I think that's also the piece that I like about coming from old school, been doing this for, over 15 years. Everything wasn't just these perfect metrics back then. So you can look at somebody and try to duplicate their exact same plan and not get the same results. Like you said, that's
Mm-hmm.
just not business. That's not business. It's part of what your natural abilities are and really where you're supposed to be aligned to. So if you're just trying to follow these straight rules and like you said, oh, the followers aren't coming, and then you get frustrated, it may be because you're pushing something. So I stumbled upon my gifts. I tell people that all day long. I did this for my brother. I always wanted to be an entrepreneur, but me working with all of these Black entrepreneurs, that was my gift that God showed me along the way. I wasn't pushing for something that I saw somebody else have, and I was just trying to duplicate that. I was being authentically who I was. I was trying to do the best that I could, with servicing them and again, being a woman of my word, making sure that whatever we promised them, we delivered on it to the best of our ability. Nothing in business is ever perfect. But as long
Mm-hmm.
as you're communicating with people, you say, hey, you said you needed this by this deadline. I'm working with you to get this done. That's the thing that grew us. Like you said, it wasn't the perfect metrics being in place and it wasn't having all the systems perfect, but that passion for it, that resilience, which is another thing, like when you're passionate about something, you have way more resiliency. If you're just doing it for a dollar, for some money, it can knock you off your feet. As soon as the money's not flowing, as soon as it doesn't look like the success is a very clear pathway, you'll get knocked off. But when you're
Mm-hmm.
passionate about something, when you feel like, hey, I know that this is what I'm supposed to be doing, even if it doesn't look like what I think it looks like, I know that I'm walking. And that's what happened to me. Some people could have looked at me when I was promoting events and I was doing all of these fun things. My name was in lights and people knew who I was, but I wasn't making a lot of money. But because I knew that I wanted to be an entrepreneur, I didn't let that, if it wasn't this direct pathway, I didn't let that look like failure for me. I just
Mm-hmm.
pivoted. Like at a time I said, you know what, people know me. I'm building up a big catalog. I have a lot of people that I know, but I'm not making money. I'm fresh out of Northwestern. I feel like I should be making X amount of money. I'm not. So what should I
Because
do?
you paid all that money to
I
that
paid all
school.
this money. I'm following the entrepreneur path. And again, it was perceived success. If I was on social media at the time, really heavily, a little bit, but it wasn't like it is now, I would have been an influencer because I knew so many
Mm-hmm.
people, big concerts that came to town. I was doing all of that stuff, but I wasn't making money. But because again, I knew my passion said entrepreneurship is the way. It might not have been adding up money wise. If I was doing it for money, I would have let it go. But what did I do? I shifted. I left everybody that I knew in that way. I went and opened up a small 200 square foot office and started selling print. And they're like, whoa, that's a shift. It didn't matter though, because for me, again, it was passion that led me, just to your point about the metrics, because if the
Mm-hmm.
metrics were in place, I probably would have looked like I was failing because I wasn't hitting my mark. I wasn't making the numbers. Events are hit and miss. You in the event industry, it's hit or miss based on who all your competition is, based on what the weather is, based on so many different factors. Everything won't be a success no matter how much energy you may put into it. An event just may not pan out.
It's funny you say that too, because in speaking of event metrics, like you plan this event, and you're like, yeah, I want like 200 people in the room. And like, because you're like, why, like, so I want 200 people in the room. So I remember once I had this event, I planned it, and I had it was packed. It was all these people in the room, and it looked great visually. But when I got the feedback, it was mixed. Some people had a great time, some people didn't. So then I started getting like really specific. And then But when I did that, it started to become more niche, started to be more intentional with my target audience. And when I did that, the audience got smaller. And I was upset because I wasn't hitting that number, that vanity number that I wanted. But even though I wasn't hitting that number, the feedback of the participants was increased. Like everyone, like more people were saying that they had a good time. So then I had to convince myself, like, okay, Vanessa, you have to stop trying to get this number and be focused on the quality. Because I noticed that when it was less people, not to say that it was empty, but like if it was like, if I was aiming for 100, but didn't get 100, but got 75, like all of those people walked away happy versus trying to get 100 people in the room and then half of them aren't happy. So it was like, so then I was like, okay, Vanessa, stop. The people who are supposed to be here are here, and the people that are here are enjoying themselves and they're walking away with a great quality experience, and that's what's important more than anything. Because I was like, well, why do I want this number? Because it looks good in pictures. Like I had to own up to it.
Yeah, one of my friends asked me that question a long time ago, just with everything, all of our goals. You know, he always asked me for what. And you have to, and it's such a simple question, but it is a very important question. So when you say, like you said, I want 500 people in the room, for what? Do you want it just because of the look, because of the feel? Because at the end of the day, if you're doing it because you want to have a quality event that people can connect or network or be inspired or listen to music, whatever that is, if it can't be achieved by that higher number, then there's no reason for doing that outside of vanity. And like I said, that's the thing that oftentimes, like I said, it goes back to, are you doing this for passion? Are you doing this for your purpose? Or are you doing this because of perception? You know, like, and I need to write that down, but it's the truth though. And when we all kind of get caught up in it, it's hard when you get, I do the Legacy Awards. People don't know we host this huge event celebrating Black entrepreneurs. So this past year, I think we went up to 700. So it's hard. It's like, okay, I got 700 people in the room. Now, do I want to go down to 500? And I've thought about it. I've thought about it, like, what were the interactions? Because the purpose of us doing this event is to make sure that our network and very powerful Black entrepreneurs connect. So if the more that the bigger it gets, maybe the more watered down some of those experiences are going to be. So it's hard sometimes to look at it and say, do I want to scale this down? If I scale it down, is that going to be looked at as failure? They're going to say, oh, the Legacy Awards wasn't as big as it was last year. But what's the purpose of the Legacy Awards? Is it to bring 700 people out? Or is it to make sure that Black entrepreneurs get powerful connections? So whether it's 400 or 500 people, but the right people in the room, and they walk away with those connections because it's not overcrowded, or because now I have more room for those meaningful experiences to happen. So I think it's something that we all get caught up in. It's hard when you hit that number. If you hit 1 million and it's like, well, you don't want to go down. But if you hit 1 million and your business quality is suffering, maybe you need to slow down a little bit. You have to think about those things.
It's like in that book that I'm telling you, that 4-hour work week thing.
Yeah. I've always wanted to read that. I know the concept. I got to read it.
Read it. So one of the things that he says, like he didn't create it, but he's like, there's always this 80-20 thing, like this 80-20 rule. And so basically he said, when he looked at his business, 80% of his income was coming from 20% of his clients.
Yes.
And he was saying, the 80% was only contributing 20% of his income. And he said, ironically enough, that 80% that was only contributing 20% of my income was giving me 80% of my headache. So he was like, yes, you like people like whittle down, and you don't want to whittle down, but if you're whittling down and you having less headache at the end of the day, you have more quality and substance, then you're better off at the end of the day. And another friend of mine gave me an example, and we were talking about social media, and we were talking about how, like, we think that certain people are not popular because they don't have X amount of followers on Instagram or Twitter or whatever. And he said, but you can be somebody and you only got 30 followers. He's like, but if your followers are Oprah, and Jay-Z, and, and like Bill Gates and things like that, then it's like your 30 followers has a better quality than someone who has 100,000 followers.
Yep. We talked about that. It's just like, because people can unauthentically get these followers as well. So it's about the action. So we talk about that a lot, just in marketing, and even the way that we approach, marketing campaigns with our clients. you want to make sure that things would be action oriented. So not just for the look or the perception of it. You know, you can run a radio ad, but if that's not going to be the most effective way for you to promote, you know, what action is that going to bring? Is that actually going to bring a result? So it's the same thing with your social media network. I've done posts and had, you know, small engagement. So let's say I post something and I get, you know, 300, 400 likes. Then I post something and I might get 50 likes, but it might have resonated with 7 or 8 people messaged me and wanted to order something or wanted to take action on it. So it's definitely not always about the numbers. And again, like I said, that's why you have to just get outside of this perception. And it's really hard with social media, you know, because we live our life amplified now. Everything is amplified. Everyone's success is amplified. You know, most aren't showing you the losses. A few do, but most people aren't showing you the losses. They're amplifying their wins and their successes. So it makes everybody in this constant comparison mode of, man, Vanessa's event is doing well and she just released a book. I'm supposed to be working on my book. You know, I'm behind on things, you know, but we also have to realize that everybody, include myself, you know, I'm not going to I might post a couple of challenges, but that's not my personality to post the biggest things that I'm going through. You never will know the transparent Keeana. That's not me. That's not who I am. So don't compare yourself to my social media, because you may not see if I'm having a challenge or if I'm going through, you know, like that's not what you're going to see. But when you look at other people and like you said, oh, they got 10,000 followers. But that does not mean, and like I said, I deal with all types of businesses. The followers does not mean success. It does not necessarily equate monetary value. Some of the most quiet people in quiet businesses are the most successful and the most profitable. And it'll always be like that, because I always tell people, you know, depending on what industry you're in, but for the most part, quiet people are getting stuff done. You know, if I'm on social media all day long, you know, I'm in marketing, but that's not the base of what I do is social media. That means I'm not getting something done. I'm not in meetings. I'm not getting deals done. If I'm only a social media expert, or if I'm an influencer, yes, I'm going to be on there. But if I'm a entrepreneur that's running a business every day and you see me on social media all day long, now I get it. We're supposed to have systems and operations in place for other people to manage. But if that's all you see me doing, then it has to be something that's not adding up. You know, because we still at the stage for most people that I know that you still got to get the work done. You got to have those meetings. You got to, if you meet with your team, meeting with other people for opportunities or, you know, things like that, you're still working. You're not doing that. So don't get so caught up in what you see other people promoting as just a success. Use it for energy, use it for fuel, but don't look at it to compare yourself and feel like you're not measuring up if you're not doing what they're doing.
We can go down a whole rabbit hole with this, but before I know I said it was the third thing that we were supposed to talk about.
Not just the pretty pictures. I wrote it down.
Oh, yes. So I had mentioned this in another conversation, but I was working with the client and we were engaging an influencer. And when you look at this particular influencer's like social Instagram page, her pictures are beautiful. She's super cute. She has the followers, things like that. But then you get her in person and she has no personality. Wow. And she's not engaging and she's really dry. And it's like, what?
Was somebody else running her page? So was somebody
No,
else?
it's just that we're just seeing a snapshot of her. We're not really seeing her, you know? And so she's giving us what she thinks we want to see because she's figured out the formula. But it's like, it's not that way. And like you said, and like I said earlier, I've seen pages where it's a bunch of pretty pictures, and as beautiful as the pictures are, there's not a lot of engagement. There's not a lot of followers. You know, there's not a lot of substance. It's just a page of pretty pictures. And it's like, you have to be more than just a pretty picture. You have to be engaging. You have to have a story to tell. You have to be somewhat charismatic. And when I say likable, I don't mean like you have to be popular. But one of the things that I think people forget is that people are invested in you, especially when you're like a small business owner. Like I was just telling this to someone yesterday. It was a small business owner, but he wanted to be anonymous and he was having problems. I said, the reason why you're having problems because there's no person attached to this. You know, I work in public relations. Right. I work in public relations, but there's 1,000 people that work in public relations who do exactly what I do, if not better. Why do people come to me? Because they like me. You know, like it's something about me that connects me to them. And that's what as an influencer, that's what you really have to harness, is not just making pretty pictures, but really put you out there, because it's you that's attracting the people.
Yeah, I agree 100%. You have to have heart behind it. You know, I'm the face of our brand. People come to WDB because I've built trust with them over the years. People feel like they can trust me with their brand and their business and things like that. And they not only trust me with their brand, but they trust me to invest the money that we get into things that they actually believe in. You know, so that relatability, even just to PR. I'm always big. People always ask, because we don't do PR, but I understand a lot about PR, and I'm very involved with our PR, especially like for our events. And like you said, it can't just be a pretty picture. The media don't want, oh, it's another business that's opening up. No, you know, it can look as good as you want, but what's the heart? What's the story behind it? Why do I care? You know, and that translates through everything. That translates through social media. People still have to feel like they care. They want to be invested in seeing you win. You know, so like you said to the guy, you know, the challenge that he was having, it's because people weren't able to see or relate. Why is this the company that I should go with? When I got 1,000 companies to choose from, what makes you different? You know, so if you're not offering compelling value or offer, you know, like a lot of the bigger companies do, then it has to be something about you. They have to be able to see and feel you and want to see you win. I'll use one of my clients, Trev from Sip and Savor. You know, I use him because I've been working with him for over 10 years. So I knew when he had Bronzeville Coffee House. Bronzeville Coffee House opened and it closed. So people see the success of Sip and Savor and him having 3 locations, but they don't know one of his first coffee houses closed. But one of his secrets to success was his resilience, really understanding who his customer was. And it was also him. He was relatable. You could go in a coffee house and see him. He gave back to the community. So like I just see his potential is limitless because people really connect with him. So he's one of the people that is on social media every day. He pop on and pop off, but he's showing you a glimpse into who he is. And that's helped him so much. Like I know you had asked before about earned media. It's given him so much because of that, people always are sharing his story. He has the opportunity to expand. I'm vying for him to come to the South Suburbs. People want him to come to other areas because they relate to who he is. They love the Sip and Savor brand, but more than anything, they believe in who he is and they understand his heart because he allows people in. So you have to, this day and age, like I said, marketing has changed. And now people want to know the face behind the brand. You know, they want to know who you are and why they should be supporting you. What do you stand for?
Well, I'm going to close on that. I told you it's an hour. An hour has gone by. And it's like, yes, it's like we start talking and it's like, I got to cut it off because we on the road.
I know. It was good. Hopefully some good info, some good gems that people can jot down.
We covered a lot. I think we covered a lot. How can people support you right now?
Well, as I mentioned, I'm in South Highland. Our office is 1007 East 162nd Street in South Highland. I always tell people they are invited to come by anytime. You do not have to be ready to buy. We're very much a family organization. So you come by, you see tons of samples. We got samples of everything, backdrops and flyers and logos and everything. So we created this space after being in business for 12 years. We were able to get our own space. And I really created it as a space of inspiration. So it's not just a place to come and make a transaction, but it was to show people. Again, I started out with a 150 square foot room. That was my first office. And then we moved to 700 square feet. Now we have almost 5,000 square feet. And the people who've been along that journey the whole way, they're inspired. But this is an inspiration for everybody to show that you can do it. You don't have to start with a ton of money. I did not start with a lot. I didn't have any money. I didn't have any investment. You know, I started with my own sweat equity and just believing in myself. So I invite people to come to the space. Of course, we're on all social platforms and our website, wdbmarketing.com. So website, social media is all the same. And again, they can come into our office. Love to talk to them. Like I said, my biggest passion really is not marketing. People do not know. It's really just entrepreneurship in general. And it's what does it take to be a successful entrepreneur? And it takes everything. It takes what we talked about, plus a whole lot more. It takes, you know, understanding your finances. But I think at the heart, it's funny how successful people have these similar personalities. It is the intuition. It is the resiliency, you know, and it's the, you know, just the determination above all to give value. You know, when I got invited to be a part of your show, I had a positive perception of your brand just because of what you put out there. You know, I did. I had a positive. I said, oh yeah, Vanessa Abrams, you know, so that's important. So the things that you've been building and that quality and making sure that it, again, it's not just the numbers or the fluff, but you actually, giving people value, that the services that you offered are actually effective. Like that was the perception that I had. So I just always want people to understand that we can try to trick the system with numbers and algorithms and everything else, but at the core, you still got to be a good business. You have to be offering something. You have to care, especially in this day and age when it's more competitive than ever. Somebody is somebody brand new entering the market right now to do exactly what you're doing. Never think that you're so unique. As blessed as we are, as many people as we work with, I never think that we cannot be replaced, or another printer or another designer is not knocking on their door, emailing them, trying to get their business. So never take that for granted. Always hustle, always work for it, and it'll pay off.
Thank you so much.
Well, this has been another fabulous episode of the DIMPRP podcast. I'm looking forward to having you join us again.